Want me to tell you another story before you take another nap? All right, let's see what we got here. Got the Pink Panther Adventures in Zealand. What? You don't like that one? What's that? Oh, you want me to tell you the story about the time I got scammed? Oh boy. You want me to share that with everybody else? All right, everyone. I'll tell you the story. Once upon a time, about 17 years ago, in August 2003, I was finishing up an internship at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center. Now, I'm not from that area of the country, and neither is Mrs. Primetime. We wanted to get back over to the East Coast, and that's where we were heading. We were heading over to Buffalo, where I was going to start a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship at SUNY Buffalo School of Medicine. So we were very excited to get there. We had not had kids yet. We had recently gotten married. And, we were just continuing to go on all these new and fun adventures together. And together is the key point. We liked to be together. We still do like to be together, but sorry, Daisy. We still do like to be together, and we like to enjoy these experiences together, especially when we transitioned and we wanted those things to be memorable. So we both had cars, and we wanted to take the same car together. We had 2 dogs at the time, Cassie and Smokey, and we wanted to just all go over in the same vehicle. That's how we had always traveled before, always in the same vehicle. And what we would do is have the other vehicle transported. So we were looking for a service that would be able to transport one of the vehicles from Oklahoma to Buffalo. And we have been looking around for different services that would do it. And pretty much every company that offered to do it quoted a price between $800 and $1,000. Now you have to remember, this is back in 2003, and we really just did not have much money. My salary at the time was about $15,000 a year, and Mrs. Primetime was working a little bit at a local hospital. But we weren't making much money. We decided to try to pull some money together just to be able to fund this car transport thing. That's how important it was to us. And I realized for a lot of people, you would just save the money and just not do that. But again, just for us, that was just our personal decision on how we wanted to do it. So one day I came back, and Miss Daisy's already bored with the story, or maybe I put her to sleep with it. But one day I came back, and Mrs. Primetime said, "Hey, guess what? I found a place that could do it for $600. So I said, "Wow, that's great." I said, "What's the place?" So she showed it to me. She brought it up on the computer and looked at it. And the name of the actual website was called movingmycar.com. Now that sounds pretty legitimate, right? I mean, that's literally what I'm trying to do, is move my car, and that's the name of the place. It says $600. I look over, read the documents, call up the place, they take our order and everything, and that's the place we went with because it was $200 cheaper. I didn't do any additional work in terms of looking into it at all. I trusted it based on the company name and because it looked like I was getting a good discount. And again, at that time, we were more vulnerable because we're really looking into, saving money. And so it just seemed really appealing. So anyway, the big day comes for the move. And I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was so long ago. And our place is totally emptied out, and we are just waiting for this car transport place to come, put our vehicle on the transporter, and just, head out. And then me and Miss Primetime and the dogs would get in the car. Well, there was a scheduled time where they were supposed to come over. The time goes and goes and goes. And sure enough, the time passes, and there's absolutely no sign whatsoever of any car transporter. I keep calling up the place. They keep telling me they're coming. Sure enough, we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And now it's getting to later in the day. I'm getting mad and I'm calling the place and I'm complaining and I'm getting louder with my complaints. And the guy yells back at me, "Don't worry about it. We'll be there, blah, blah, blah." But he never shows up. So now we're kind of stuck. What do we do? I don't really want to leave my vehicle here, but we have things that are going on a schedule. We need to be in Buffalo to be able to receive our home goods and everything that we had put on the moving van. So it was just crazy. So it was very tough to do, but we had no choice. So just step on me, Daisy. That's totally fine. So anyway, so I get into I get into the car. Me and Mrs. Primetime get in together to her vehicle, and we just decide, all right, we'll try to keep in touch with the company, and maybe they will come by the next day or the day after that, pick up the car, and we'll just leave the keys with somebody in the office, the car keys. So that's what we do. We head off, but while we did it together, and that was good that we traveled together and we did accomplish that, it was stressful because the entire time, continue to wonder, where is the vehicle that's supposed to come and, pick things up? Where's the transporter? So the weekend goes and I still keep trying to call and I keep getting a runaround. Now, one of the fake stories that they had told me over the phone was, well, it's a weekend and there's not a lot of car transporters out. Well, as we're traveling from state to state, I just keep seeing car transporter after car transporter, many of them filled up with cars. So, it just starts to add up that there's something here that's not quite right. Plus, I'm getting additionally frustrated because I had paid a $200 deposit to secure the supposed service for moving the car, and then you just pay the difference after the car has been moved. But we're going to get back to that $200 deposit a little bit later. We finally arrive in Buffalo. I call up again. I remember standing from payphones calling on the way, and still getting the runaround. They're gonna come. I call the office. My vehicle is still there. So that night, I get to my apartment and I call my dad on the phone. And I explain to him what is going on. And he listens to my story and he asked me one simple question. He said, "Did you do any research on this company at all?" I said, "What do you mean research?" He said, "Did you at least type the name of the company into Google and just do a Google search on it?" He said, "What's the name of this guy that owns the company?" I told him the name. He said, "Did you do a search on the guy?" I said, "No." Now I'm feeling dumb, like I should have done this. He goes, "No." So he's like, "Hold on." So he gets onto his computer and he does a search. Takes him like 2 seconds. And I'll never forget it. He says, "You've been totally scammed." I said, "What do you mean I've been scammed?" He goes, "There's an article right here on MSNBC that talks exactly about this company scamming all sorts of people across the country into doing exactly what you are saying, that he is telling people he's going to move the car and then he never actually moves the vehicle. And what he does once the scam goes a little bit longer is that he either tries to charge you an additional $200 expedited fee to move the vehicle, but he never actually moves the vehicle. He just takes another $200 from you. Now, as it turns out, he was ordered to pay restitution, something to the tune of $700,000 and change, to all of the victims that he had defrauded. I'm doubtful in terms of how much money actually was paid back. He was living in something like a mansion that I could recall, because I remember when I was researching him after I had found out that I was victimized, I found that he was living in this mansion because he was featured in this gardening magazine and they showed all these pictures of his estate. And he was probably just blowing all this money on this big, estate that he had lived in. But I had tried to get in on the class action lawsuit, but I was too late and it was impossible. I just was not able to get my $200 back. But I lost a lot more than $200. There was a lot of distress, like I said, that was associated with what happened. There was a lot of embarrassment in being scammed and being victimized like that. And I also lost additional money because once I realized after seeing this article that my dad pointed me to that I had been scammed, I knew right then and there was no way I was ever going to get my car back. It literally said that in the article that the guy was never actually shipping the car. So he would just wait till you complain enough, and then he'd just say, sorry, you've been rude and I'm taking the $200 non-refundable fee. You're not getting it back and we're not moving your car. And that's what happened. So I basically had to get on a plane. So now I'm paying for a plane ticket. And, it's like a last minute plane ticket to fly from Buffalo on a connecting flight. There might even have been multiple connecting flights to get from Buffalo to Oklahoma City, get a taxi, get over to my car, and then drive the car now back like a total of, once you add it all up, it was something like 24 hours or something on the road, or 23 hours, and rent a hotel or motel and all this stuff because you can't drive that straight by myself to go from Oklahoma to Buffalo. And that was just so frustrating and just so maddening. You have all these emotions. You're angry, you're sad, you're embarrassed. There's all these things that you're going through. And when you go through something like that, it's really very traumatizing. Now, this guy was located in Anderson, California, which is in Shasta County. He was arrested eventually for what he did in 2005. There was a 3-week trial, and he was found guilty on multiple charges, part of which included mail fraud. So, because he was doing this to people, all across the United States. Now, turns out he was sentenced to 67 months in prison. His name was Billy D. Sutherland, Southerland. I'll put some links to some aspects to the case down below if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about it. Turns out that MSNBC article, I can't find that anymore. That was so long ago, it's not around, but there is still information about the case. Now, for years, I had tried to follow up and see exactly what wound up happening with this guy. I knew he was sentenced, but just didn't know if he ever got out early or anything like that. And it turns out I didn't really look into it anymore until today before I went to make this video because I just stopped after several years. And I found out that he had tried to get his sentencing delayed, and he had tried to get his sentence stayed and all sorts of things. He tried to get released early, all things to try to evade all responsibility for what he had done. Fortunately, the judge denied all of those motions, and then the last thing that I saw about the case was that his case was ended because he passed away in prison in 2009. As bad as that experience was, it was a life-changing thing for me. And I know it doesn't have anything to directly do with reselling, but it's affected all areas of my life, including reselling, because what I learned after that day were two really big things. And these are things, it's not like I hadn't heard these things before, but sometimes you have to actually go through an experience where you really, get hit hard by something, when you learn that you really have to do these things. So number one, if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. And that certainly was the case in this instance. So, this guy's offering something $200 below market price. You've got to really be critical and look into it and say, how is that possibly the case? Is there really some kind of reasonable explanation in terms of how this guy could do this? It's the same thing. Think about it when you are sourcing something. If someone is offering you product at a massive discount compared to everybody else, one of the things you have to start to wonder is, are these stolen goods, for example? Because if you wind up taking in stolen goods and the police come, they have every right to seize that. And so you're out the money and you're out the product. That's just one example. Now, the second lesson that I learned, and this is probably even more important than the first one, which is to do your research. I can't emphasize that enough, because if I had just done simple keyboard research into Google when I found out about this car company, then I would have saved myself a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of grief. But I didn't, either because I was too lazy, I was too busy, I didn't think about it at the time, or some combination of those things. It's so important, and it doesn't actually even take a lot of time. But ever since that day, there has never been an instance in which, if I had any reason to question or doubt any person or company that I was even thinking of working with, that I have not gone ahead and done my research on it. And that's, doesn't mean that I would have necessarily had a reason to suspect that the company or person would have done anything bad. It could just be simply, I just don't know. And so I want to try to find out. And so whether it's reselling or not, it has come in very valuable many times. With reselling, I can't tell you how many times somebody has reached out to me and responded to one of my Craigslist ads in which I'm looking for merchandise. And because I went ahead and did a Google search on that person and found out that that person has been arrested for theft, has been arrested for robbery, that there is no way at all, or arrested for assault, that I'm even going to take any chances in dealing with that person. Whether it's, hiring a contractor for reselling or not. But just today, I had contractors come over to finish the restoration in the flood area, which I can't wait to show you that when I get all the finishing touches on there. But you better believe that when I hired this contractor to come over, I did my research. I checked the Better Business Bureau. I got references. I checked Google and looked for, what other people had said about this company, that sort of thing. Even looking into the name of the person who runs the company. All of these things are important. I can't tell you how many times a company comes to my medical blog business that I have on the side, Med Friendly, and they want to advertise. And turns out that I find out that this person is trying to advertise because they're trying to get their reputation back after being arrested for some kind of crime in the medical area. Maybe they lost their license or something like that. And there's no way I'm going to put that person, I don't care how much they want to pay me, on my website and be associated with me in any way. If someone reaches out to me because they want to do a YouTube collaboration, or if someone applies to my Facebook group, I do some research into those individuals, into those people, if I have any reason to be suspicious about anything. So I'm really, really careful about who I'm associating with, because that all speaks to your reputation. One of the other things that my dad told me when I was younger, he said to me, tell me the people that you associate with and I'll tell you who you are. And that is true. So you have to be careful about those things. It's very, very important. So bottom line, even though, again, this isn't a 100% reselling video in terms of the place that I was originally scammed by, it has significantly impacted my life and impacts the way I think. I approach things very skeptically, and that's not a bad thing, because it has saved me so many times, reselling related and otherwise. So if you have a story that you're comfortable sharing about a time where you were scammed, and there's any kind of tips and stuff that you want to, put down that might help other people, feel free to do that. No pressure down below. If there's anything else you want to share, any questions that you had, feel free to let me know that as well. So I appreciate you sticking by this story. I think we probably put Daisy to sleep. We'll check in with her right before we end. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, there she is. She's not sleeping after all. She's still guarding everything. But I think she did enjoy the story, at least the beginning of it. So, all right, everyone. I'll see you back in the next video, everyone.